So we have ourselves the record here. Oh my goodness, it is getting better for the Vancouver Canucks. We had spoken just a few days ago about how it's getting worse for guys like Tyler Myers and Carson Soucy. But wow, oh wow, do we have ourselves some better news to talk about with this hockey team. And it all comes to us in the form of the most recent NHL Team of the Week. No, this is not the Team of the Week from NHL's Hockey Ultimate Team on the video game, but this is Smash Bros. 13, who went out there and posted the best and worst Team of the Week for November 16th to November 23. These teams and these ratings are calculated using the Hockey Stat Cards Game Score metric, which takes a look at how players perform in games, gives them an assigned score, and of course the Team of the Week just takes a look at the cumulative results of who had the best weeks versus who had the worst weeks. Now, let's actually start out with some bad Canucks news, because we did have ourselves one guy appear on the worst Team of the Week. Take a look at this. It is Jonathan Lekkerimäki, who had one of the worst weeks out of all NHL forwards from November 16th to November 23rd. He had a minus 2.22 game score metric, and that's good enough to land him in the fourth line spot of the worst Team of the Week. Admittedly, it's not as bad as some of the other guys here. I mean, Owen Tippett, Oliver Bjorkstrand, these guys were pretty worse. And the defense on this worst team, I mean, Erik Karlsson, Matt Gritslick, Ryan Suter, terrible. Absolutely dog water stinking terrible. Maybe it's why he got sent down, eh? Okay, no, we're not going to go out there and say that. Jonathan Lekkerimäki was fine, folks. He was okay. He was definitely not a bad player. Okay, he was a bad player based off of the metrics on the score here, but like, based off of what we saw, based off of how Canucks fans were viewing this guy, Lekkerimäki wasn't anything too special aside from the absolutely booming shot that he would have. It's just, he definitely does have a little bit more development to go through before he's a full-time NHL player, so him being on the worst Team of the Week, not the biggest deal in the world. He did get sent down in SAS and got his cup of coffee too, which allowed him to get his first NHL points, so good for him. But if you go over to the NHL's Best Team of the Week, you will see some guys in the bottom of the lineup like Sam Reinhart and Alex Barkov. Mikko Rantanen is on here too, not to mention Dmitry Orlov, Cale Makar, Jared Spurgeon, Zach Werenski. Kind of interesting how Quinn Hughes is not on this list. He was on one of the prior Team of the Weeks with an astounding, I think it was like a 15 or a 16 game score. Jalen Chatfield and Dmitry Orlov have the highest game scores for defense this week with 13 and 12. But if you go over to the top forwards, the top guys in the top six, you will see Elias Pettersson, Anthony Cirelli, Jake DeBrusk, and Kiefer Sherwood all up in there. Not to mention Sean Monahan and Kirill Marchenko. Those Columbus forwards have been playing pretty well. We had talked about this the last time we made a video about the Team of the Week, but like, usually when teams play well, you can see duos present themselves on these lists. Like, for example, in Detroit, they're playing poorly, which is why Joe Veleno and Patrick Kane are both on the worst Team of the Week, and a bunch of Penguins guys suck too. And then on the Team of the Week, the regular guys, you have yourselves two Panthers in the forward core, Barkov and Reinhart, two Blue Jackets in Monahan and Marchenko, two Lightnings in Hagel and Cirelli, two D-men in Carolina from Orlov and Chatfield, and then three Vancouver Canucks top forwards in Pettersson, DeBrusk, and Sherwood. Petey has a 10.76 game score, DeBrusk a 9.72, and Kiefer Sherwood has a 10.36. These guys have been playing very, very well. And I think when you start to really break it down what this means for the Vancouver Canucks, it spells some really good things. Sherwood and DeBrusk are both legit top 6 caliber wingers, and Elias Pettersson is playing so well with them. All the points, all the goals, and then for Kiefer Sherwood, we can get into him a little bit later because he has broken some records, so good on him for doing that. But if you dive into the Canucks subreddit, you had yourself some comments made about this very list. I can't undersell how huge it is for Pettersson to find legit line mates that aren't Miller, Besser, or Garland. Because if this is sustainable, that means we can have Suter, Miller, Besser, and Joshua Bluger Garland as our middle six, which is cup-winning forward depth when healthy. And you also have yourselves that fourth line, which would pretty much include everybody else. You have Niels Höglander, you have Danton Heinen, and you have whoever else is tossed out there in that final roster spot. Not even to mention that all three of these lines, Petey, Sherwood, DeBrusk, Suter, Miller, Besser, and Bluger, Joshua Garland, they can all play big minutes against the best. They're all reliable lines in Tocchet's eyes. Kinda makes me wish we kept Sprong just to have him in a super sheltered fourth line role with Hogs and whomever leftover center had the best offensive upside, like Danton Heinen. Glass cannon fourth line with two 20-goal scorers playing less than 10 minutes would be crazy. Realistically, it's going to be PTG and Baines by March, but it was a fun idea. And just when you think about the chemistry, like this is the first time in years that Elias Pettersson has actually had some really offensively capable and hard playing as well wingers alongside of him. I think JT Miller might have been the best one at that a few years ago with that 649 line, but even in the future years, I mean, Kuzmenko and Pettersson was a great duo, but it just didn't work out later on when Rick Tocchet came in and he had that style. Kuzi was a really nice, flashy forward, but he didn't really do much else out of that. So Pettersson setting him up, it was great. With Boudreau at the helm, it's just heading into the next transition, it wasn't all too cohesive. But then you have yourselves Jake DeBrusk and Kiefer Sherwood, both of whom have skill and both of whom are very hard-nosed. Sherwood is a lot more hard-nosed, I would say, than pretty much anybody in the league, but he's still got some offensive touch to his game. Jake DeBrusk as well has more of a flair and a little bit nicer hands, but also is not afraid to get in deep on the forecheck. Elias Pettersson playing with these guys, it makes his job a little bit easier because these wingers are really committing to digging pucks out and finding space. Petey is just allowed to play his game, and he's been getting a lot of points as a result. Elias Pettersson in his last 2 weeks has 7 games and 10 points. He's also got 4 goals, a +4, 11 blocks, which is third amongst forwards, and a 68.38 expected goals for percentage at 5v5, which is third overall in the NHL. Long story short, Elias Pettersson is doing amazing things, and when he is on the ice, the Canucks have much higher chances of scoring versus getting scored against, and he's doing all of this with the support of DeBrusk and Sherwood on his left and right. Meanwhile, you had yourselves a record-breaking stat that Kiefer Sherwood went out there and had, okay, not a record-breaking stat, a record-tying stat. Take a look at this. Adam Kierszenblat on the Hockey News went out there and posted this earlier yesterday. Because my brain is broken, I went back through the NHL records and found out that Canucks Kiefer Sherwood has tied the NHL record for most 10-plus hit games in a season. He is tied with Tommy Wingels, who had 4 while with the San Jose Sharks during the 2013-14 season. Very, very obscure stat. But if you go out there and take a look at it, hey, guess what? Kiefer Sherwood had 10 hits in the game against Ottawa yesterday, also had 10 hits in the game against the Rangers the night before, or not the night before, the most previous game a few days ago, and then if you scroll down, he also had the 10-hit game against Florida on October 17th and a 12-hit game against the Chicago Blackhawks. Kiefer Sherwood has 4 10-hit games this season, not to mention he's got 2 games that are at 9, and then a few more that are at 8 and 7. This guy has been a hitting machine, and he is on pace to smashing, shattering, destroying the hit record for one NHL season that was set by his teammate from last year, Jeremy Lauzon. You also think about Kiefer Sherwood, all he needs is one more 10-hit game to break the record for most 10-hit games in a year by anybody, and you start thinking about it like, hey, that's Elias Pettersson's line mate. Who knew that this was the kind of formula that would really succeed with the Vancouver Canucks? Sure, you've had guys that can hit that have played with Pettersson in the past. Sam Lafferty, he can hit. Ilya Mikheyev, he can skate. But some of these guys lacked such a basic level of offensive capability that it was difficult for Elias Pettersson to build off of that. Kiefer Sherwood, on the other hand, has, 5 points in his last 4 games? He's been so good. And Jake DeBrusk, too, has been putting the puck in the back of the net, and he's been looking pretty good, too, in the process. So Vancouver hockey has been getting some really good numbers and results out of these guys. Who knew that this was even possible for the Vancouver Canucks and Elias Pettersson? Let's say if you had asked everybody at the beginning of the season, a lot of people would have said that JKD was going to be Petey's line mate, yeah, but Kiefer Sherwood? Nah, it wasn't going to be him. It would have been like Sprong or somebody, a goal scorer. But no, Jake DeBrusk is the goal scorer, and Kiefer Sherwood is using those minutes to do everything in his power to put players through glass and get that hit record in the process. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about this awesome Canucks update with Pettersson, DeBrusk, and Sherwood. Let me know in the comments how do you feel about these guys and how they're going to continue their play down the line. Do you see this sticking around? Do you see this being the new top line for Vancouver? Let me know in the comments how do you feel about that. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.